Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Coming up tonight on Our News, what health experts say Bahamians should be doing to combat a rise in COVID cases, plus a teen charged with drug possession. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, health officials alarmed by a marked increase in COVID-19 cases in recent weeks. Director of the Infectious Diseases Program, Dr. Nakia Forbes, says it's due to Bahamians not following health protocols. Health officials say they've been monitoring numbers since January 2021, which reveal a marked increase in cases and hospitalizations.
These cases, they are not linked to one another, and a few of them do have travel histories, but not everyone has a travel history. So that is concerning that they are acquiring COVID in the community. In that case, that raises our suspicions for that. And whenever we do see that, that is because people are gathering and not following the public health precautions when there's an uptick in cases.
Dr. Forbes warns a sustained uptick in cases could result in a third wave of COVID-19. Between January 2nd and March 24th, New Providence recorded 599 new COVID-19 cases. Grand Bahama recorded 258 and Abaco recorded 102 new cases. On March 24th, the COVID-19 dashboard revealed 33 new cases in the country, 21 on New Providence, 8 on Grand Bahama, 2 on Abaco, 1 on Eleuthera, and 1 on Exuma.
Restrictive measures and curfews and so on are only put into place when it is that officials are concerned that cases are high and sustained. If the cases have a sustained increase, then that is when those measures are considered to stop spread, essentially.
More than 5,000 people have received their first shot of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine so far. Forbes says this is a good sign, but those who receive the vaccine must still follow health protocols. Well, a 15-year-old boy today charged with 1 count of possession of dangerous drugs with intent to supply before Magistrate Andrew Forbes. Police say the juvenile was allegedly found in possession of Indian hemp on Wednesday, March 24th. The charge is in connection to an arrest made at SC McPherson School, where the suspect allegedly brought marijuana-infused Rice Krispies cereal to school and sold it to students. 7 children complained of feeling ill after consuming the edibles and were taken to hospital. The teen was not required to enter a plea and was granted $500 bail. He returns to court on April 13th. And Police Commissioner Paul Roll is urging parents to keep an eye on their children and the snacks they eat.
We've seen the emergence of persons bringing these drugs into the school in a couple of instances. Not necessarily in the school. I believe this is the first one we have seen, but this new type of thing. We don't want it to be a trend, and so we try to do our best to make sure that people know that, eating marijuana is just like drinking alcohol, because once you ingest it and it gets into your bloodstream, it has the same effect.
Well, 40 employees of Grand Isle Resort and Residences will be terminated, according to the company, which issued a statement today after employees staged a protest outside the Exuma Resort this morning. Those employees say hotel management has been using the pandemic as an excuse to keep employees in limbo.
Let's be fair. Pay us now. Let's be fair. Pay us now. Let's be fair. Pay us now.
And I think Grand Isle is blaming the pandemic for that. I think we need to be paid and be paid full. Just let us go. It's nothing personal. It's just give us, and then we'll go.
Well, today, the statement issued by Grand Isle Resort and Residences noted that it had no choice but to restructure its business model, which includes the termination of some 40 currently furloughed team members. The resort says they will be treated fairly with full payout packages in accordance with the Bahamas Employment Act. Back in November 27, 2020, Grand Isle set a soft reopening date for the resort at December 17th, with the aim to bring back some team members in the first phase. During phase 2, the company said team members would be called back as the resort experiences increased business activity that may not be before mid-February. Later, on March 10, 2021, a memo indicated that the company would like to reinstate furloughed employees as soon as possible, but the low percentage of paid occupancy and minimal guest activity at the resort cannot support additional staffing levels at this time, and the resort remains in phase 1 of reopening. Today, the company communication expressed the same, noting that it is committed to retaining as many team members as possible. Amid a worrying increase in COVID-19 cases, police say 7 people are in custody in connection with fraudulent documents relating to COVID-19 tests. According to police, those individuals were attempting to travel to a family island. Yesterday, one man was taken into custody for fraudulent documents related to COVID tests. Police giving no further details, but say they are currently investigating those incidents. In other news, Shantytown residents didn't understand what was happening in their communities when the Shantytown Action Task Force posted notices of demolition, according to the lawyer for 177 residents who are challenging the legality of government's Shantytown demolition policy. Jared Higgs reports.
Attorney Fred Smith QC says the question is whether these Shantytown residents' homes should be destroyed, pointing again to the similarities between shantytowns and some homes in over-the-hill communities. He argued again that over-the-hill communities were being offered a rejuvenation plan, while shantytowns, with similar issues such as a lack of indoor plumbing and questionable building standards, were set to be demolished. He says the Over-the-Hill White Paper, which talks about empowering the community economically and helping residents acquire land rights, amounts to a proportional approach. He says the approach to shantytowns was an attempt to eradicate an ethnic community. Smith argued that the demolition attempts came at a time when the government was cracking down on undocumented migrants, pointing to comments made by the Prime Minister, where he warned undocumented individuals to get their papers straight or get out. But Smith says government's approach to the shantytown demolitions weren't consistent with international law. He said government can't have its cake and eat it too, by signing international treaties but ignoring them domestically. Smith doubled down on the assertion that government does not have an interest in the land and cannot lawfully take possession of the land through legislation or otherwise. He added that the shantytown residents may in fact have acquired interest in the land through adverse possession, commonly known as squatters' rights. Smith blasted the use of the Buildings Regulation Act and the Building Regulations Manager to evict people from their homes in the communities. He told the court that the residents of the shantytowns didn't understand what was going on when the Shantytown Action Task Force started coming to the communities and putting notices up. He says the actions of the government amounted to creating refugees in the country, and there was an overwhelming likelihood that the applicants will suffer inhumane treatment by having their communities demolished. While Smith spoke mostly uninterrupted while making his arguments, Crown Counsel Kayla Green Smith objected to language used by Smith during his submissions. Smith says he doesn't flee from his accusation that government's actions amount to ethnic cleansing through the use of arbitrary power. The opposing lawyers also disagreed on whether an injunction on Abaco should be continued and whether government destroyed the shantytowns on Abaco or if Hurricane Dorian was to blame. With Smith's case closed, government will have an opportunity to defend its shantytown demolition policy when the matter returns to court on April 12th. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Well, more than 5,000 people have been vaccinated so far, and that number is growing as a new COVID-19 vaccine center opened its doors today. Walk-up appointments at the Church of God of Prophecy East Street were full, and officials say more than 200 people booked appointments in advance. Jasmine Brown reports.
The Ministry of Health opened its newest vaccination center today, and officials say the demand was huge. Facility manager and Rotarian John Robertson says they are fully booked out until at least next week.
The appointments are closed, and we're hoping by next week that we'll be able to open up again, but we won't know until the Tuesday is finished.
Robertson says the center can deliver just over 200 jabs a day.
We will use every single vial. The Ministry of Health monitors that 100%, and nothing gets wasted.
The Bahamas received 20,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine from the government of India earlier this month. Despite the full bookings at the newest facility, it was not crowded, as those looking to get vaccinated said it only took minutes to go through the process.
It was great. The staff was great. Everything went well. No problems. And I feel great.
People over 60, healthcare providers and caregivers accompanying the elderly became eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine this week. Many of the people who showed up at the vaccination facility this morning were senior citizens.
I was home for nearly a year. You know, my children, I don't come out as such. So I will get the vaccine.
Businessman Paul Andy Gomez says he was prompted to get the prick after several members of his family were infected.
My father, my mother, my sisters all were infected, but they have, luckily insurance. And if you choose not to take the vaccine and you don't have insurance, that's it. That's it. Because insurance makes a big difference.
These elderly cousins who came to get the vaccine say they share more than just a name. They also share the desire to be vaccinated so that they can travel again.
I like to go to Canada and I like to travel, so maybe if I don't take it, I wouldn't be able to go.
Now, there was one common thread among all the people we interviewed here at the center, and that was how smoothly and quickly the process went. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Another sunny day in the capital today. Greg Thompson has the latest over in the Weather Center.
Thanks, Christina. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your TGIF Friday weather. Beautiful conditions once again around the islands. That ridge of high pressure continuing to dominate our weather. Warm temperatures into the 80s once again. We are into the mid-70s, 75 degrees. Few clouds. Your winds are out of the southeast at 7 knots. Your feels like temperature in the mid-70s. Satellite view. Quiet weather around the islands. We have a disturbance to the east of us. We could see some clouds passing across the northern islands, maybe even an isolated shower. But that stiff east to southeasterly flow will continue for the rest of the evening. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come, the top brass of the police force get the jab, and why the tourism minister says tourism is looking up. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news, and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
The top brass of the Royal Bahamas Police Force receiving their first doses of the COVID-19 vaccine today at Loyola Hall. Police Commissioner Paul Roll was the first in line for the jab.
I indicated always I was prepared to take this vaccine, and I came in this morning and did it. I was only waiting for them to make it available to us, and I believe the remainder of the police force, those persons who are going to be taking it, will be able to start doing the registration later today.
Roll says in this case he's leading by example and hopes other officers will register beginning next week to get the vaccine.
Countries are trying to get their residents vaccinated because COVID is real, and it's killing people. I don't want to see any police officers or any other Bahamian die. So I would encourage them to take this vaccine.
Well, 22-year-old Malik Adderley today charged with the March 5th murder of Anton Wright. Police say officers responded to a shooting incident on Lyon Road where they found a man dead in a room with gunshot wounds. Adderley was not required to enter a plea and was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections. He returns to court on June 17th. In other news, while the tourism rebound appears to be rather slow on New Providence, some family islands are seeing a greater increase in visitors, according to Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar. Kyle Joaquin has more.
Countries are going to require, and the Bahamas will probably go this way, either you get vaccinated or you get a PCR test.
As Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines and other industry stakeholders make it mandatory that patrons be vaccinated for COVID-19, de Aguilar says it's a trend he thinks will be taken on throughout the world, probably even here in the Bahamas.
And I think countries, as more and more of the world starts to get vaccinated, they're going to require that in order to travel to their country, you get vaccinated. And some employers might require it. If you want to work in this environment, you need to be vaccinated. Governments, I don't think, will ever require their citizenry to get vaccinated.
And he said vaccination will play a key role in the country's tourism rebound. De Aguilar said while you won't see tourists moving about in Nassau as usual, some family islands, especially the smaller ones like Harbour Island, are bustling with activity.
The charter business, the yacht chartering business is doing very well. The private aviation is doing well. Certain family islands that cater to that very high-end customer are doing well. They want to get away.
De Aguilar says while tourism may be down some 60 to 70% compared to what it usually is, there is optimism that a bounce back is underway.
That there's a huge amount of pent-up demand. And they don't want to go far, but they want to go on a vacation. Yeah. So we feel that the Caribbean, specifically the Bahamas, is wonderfully positioned to take advantage of that. And we're seeing that in some of our low-density destinations, boutique destinations.
But he said while some family islands are doing well, 75% of tourists who visit the Bahamas visit New Providence.
We have to fix New Providence, and we have to make sure and focus our marketing dollars on going back to that sort of mid-level, mid-tier consumer.
For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Still to come, a Long Island teen finds strength in song. Plus, Bahamian Buddy Hield back on the court. The details after this.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is Our News. Welcome back. Resources are stretched thin at some churches, according to Christian Council President Delton Fernander, who says the increased demand for help is taking a toll. Julian Gray has that.
Despite fewer restrictions and more people going back to work, there's still a great need for assistance, according to Christian Council President Delton Fernander, who said churches continue to see more people come through their doors for help.
It hasn't changed much. Let me explain. That what has happened now is those who are going to the national program have moved to the church program. And so those who were probably not going to a local church because they were on the national program, that they find themselves augmenting now with coming to the church program.
The National Food Distribution Task Force, which was set up last year, is in its final phase and is set to end this month. Fernander says while the church is all about helping, he can't deny that resources are being stretched. People have not just come for food, but help with bills and counseling as well.
It's a lot of bent-up frustration. And so a lot of the counseling mode has really stepped up. And it's been taxing, but at least we can see that we're making a difference.
Things haven't slowed down at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Kirk either. Pastor Bryn McPhail says it's the donations of their partners that allow them to continue to give.
And we have seen an uptick in the need for groceries, and we're grateful Bahamas International Foods regularly donates frozen meat and fresh produce, and our partnership with Bahamas International Foods has enabled us to keep up with the demand.
Providing assistance has been challenging as COVID-19 forced some of their volunteers volunteers to stay at home. With the vaccine now in country, MacPhail says some of their leaders have been able to resume outreach work.
For much of the spring and early summer of 2020, we didn't have all of our leaders able to give in-person support, so it was challenging. But just in the last week, I'm hearing of many of our leadership being vaccinated, feeling much better about going and gathering in public, and so I'm very hopeful.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Well, a Long Island teen finds strength in song as she overcomes the challenges life has thrown her. Jared Higgs tells us more.
18-year-old Ashley Fox has a passion for singing, especially Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Aretha Franklin, and Beyonce. The 2020 graduate from NGM Major High School in Long Island had the opportunity to showcase her talent on national television when government officials opened a passport office on Long Island. That's where Our News got the chance to speak with her. Fox is unique in many ways. She's been visually impaired since birth, but life's challenges have not dulled her ambition.
I have versatility, so I like to write, I like to sing. So I actually was thinking I wanted to produce and write.
The 18-year-old graduated in 2020. Going to high school on a family island was difficult, but she says once she got the resources needed to learn with her sight, her grades improved. Today she describes herself as independent, but she admits that there are tough moments.
It's hard, but since I was born like that, so that's just that's what I'm used to, and I learned how to work with it and how to navigate it.
Her father, Jimmy Fox, says he's proud to see how far his daughter has come with her singing.
She always has to fight from the beginning, and it's taught her to become more resilient.
The older Fox knows what it's like to overcome physical challenges. He lost his hand at the age of 16 after picking up an object that exploded. He says he tried to pass on a certain mindset to his daughter.
As long as you don't give up in your mind, as long as you are prepared to fight for something and you see the value of something, you could always get it. So for me, I think handicap is not so much as whether you're missing a limb or an organ. It's more like how you adapt with your mind.
As for Ashley, the 18-year-old says while she would be open to leaving Long Island to launch a career elsewhere, social media provides opportunities that didn't exist before. Ultimately, she's committed to standing on her own 2 feet. Her advice to others facing similar challenges:
don't feel afraid to ask, for help.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
And tonight in sports, Buddy Hield and the Kings reign supreme over the Golden State Warriors. Marcellus Hall has the highlights.
All right, thanks, Christina. Welcome to our Sports on a Friday, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Buddy Hield and the Sacramento Kings, let's just say their season has not been a good one. They've underachieved. A lot of people thought they would be a playoff contender. So far, they're struggling just to stay out of the bottom of the Western Conference. Last night, taking on the Golden State Warriors, looking to pick up a win. Let's take a look. Buddy Hield, Sacramento Kings at home, taking on the Golden State Warriors. Kings looking to stay hot after a win, and this time getting it done. 141-119 ends up being your final score, an absolute blowout victory. Buddy, meanwhile, playing pretty solidly, played 30 minutes on the floor, 6 of 11 shooting, including 4 of 9 from downtown, finishes up with 16 points, 6 assists, and a steal to go along with that. Buddy right now and the Kings looking pretty solid. They improved their record to 20-25. Still with the ways to go if they want to get back in playoff contention, but a good way to pick up a nice win against the Sacramento Kings. On to some track and field news where the DTSP Wolfpack getting ready to host their track classic coming up on April 10th over at the Thomas A. Robinson Stadium. Members of the club, along with coaches and sponsors, coming together yesterday to make the announcement at Holy Cross Church. And that's your check on sports for you this Friday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Have a great weekend. Back to you.
Well, the Compost King puts waste to work. That's coming up when Our News returns.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to our news. Beautiful, breezy conditions ahead for the weekend. Greg is back in the weather studio with the latest.
Thanks again, Christina, and a happy Friday evening, everybody. High pressure remains the dominant weather feature across our area, generating those blue skies, warm temperatures, almost summer-like, but we are starting to see those winds tighten up across our area, so breezy conditions for the rest of the weekend. Boating and beaching expected to be a bit of a challenge, but that high is going to keep all the weather systems well to the north of our area. Boating forecast for the all areas tonight through tomorrow. We're asking you small craft operators to use some caution. East to southeast winds 15 to 20 knots. Seas running 4 to 6 feet over the ocean. Your high tide was at 7:01 this evening. Here's a look now at your national forecast. Now look at your extended forecast through Wednesday. That's a look at our weather. Make it a great, safe weekend, everybody. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg. One entrepreneur is building his compost business from the ground up, turning waste into opportunity. In this Freestyle Friday, the Compost King explains how it works.
Just spin it. And that's how it works.
Nicholas Fox churns his first compost tumbler in his backyard. It's a business of a different speed, spinning waste into the building blocks for fertile soil and bountiful harvest.
As things break down, it produces a lot of different soil microbes, fungi, and other forms of life that helps your plants.
As the Bahamas and the world move toward becoming more sustainable, Fox began thinking about what role he could play in the process.
I plan to go into other types of composting like worms or liquid compost or even a fungi or a fungi-based compost. This is more of a bacterial-based compost and it gets really hot, up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit.
So how does it work? Fox explains that his compost is made up of a ratio of greens, fruits and vegetables, and browns, dried leaves and bush.
It's mostly citrus and banana peels with some carrots, beets, and they've all been blended, juiced, and chopped.
By day 5, Fox says the tumbler will be so hot you won't be able to step close to it, an indicator that the chemical process is working. Fox says there's a science and an art to it.
I treat my compost like a cake or a lasagna. Once you put all the layers in, you just put it in the oven and you let it cook. If you feel moved to compost, compost. But unless you're making a lot of food, it doesn't make sense because compost is a very specific thing where if you don't have it at a certain scale, it won't heat up, it won't break down. You may just attract rats and mosquitoes, and it'll be a lot more of a hassle.
You can find Fox on Instagram at The Compost King. Thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas, for the love of music starts right now.